Craving for that home cooked ba? Easy lang with Dato Puti Adobo Series.
A couple months ago, I got a call from my friend Nami saying the conditions were once again looking ideal for carpenter ants to have a nuptial flight. And although I was about to hop on a plane early the next morning, I might not get another chance. The species I'm after is Camponotus CA02. For over a year now, I've been trying to raise a colony of these massive and majestic carpenter ants, but I've had 2 failed attempts that were unfortunately my fault. Yet, I am determined once more to try again. The question was, would I be able to find any, or did I drive all the way out here for nothing? Tonight would be an adventure of, oh, hey, there's one. Well, that was quick. I kind of thought that the whole search would make for a full episode, but I guess not. There were queens crawling around all over the place. Thousands of them, all looking for a good spot to dig their chambers. As you can see from my clearly experienced hands, I have not caught many queens, so it took me a little while to get her in the capsule. But eventually I got her, and I wasn't the only one out there. Nami was there, I saw Francisco from last time, a handful of other people, and my brother. This is his channel, by the way. He makes remixes. We were all having fun hanging out, walking around, catching queens, and finding cool bugs. This is Myrmecocystus wheeleri, a beautiful golden-colored honeypot queen. And here's another Myrmecocystus testaceus, like the ones that I caught last time. But mostly, we saw the big CA02 queens. Now, I just want to make a quick note here about over-collecting, because there were some people there collecting way more than they needed. Nami collected a bunch, but he has an actual business and permits, and he still doesn't collect more than he thinks he can sell. But a couple people had a bag with hundreds of queens, just for fun, which is wrong and unethical. While going out and catching ants is great, I would say over-collecting means taking more than you can properly care for. I decided to take 2 home. This is Queen Midas III, carrying on the legacy of my favorite queen from last year, and accompanying her is Queen Aurum, which is the Latin word for gold. These 2 sisters have quite a journey ahead of them, not only because the founding stage is incredibly challenging for new queens, but because I'm about to attempt something kinda crazy, combining them into a single test tube to see if they can work together in founding a colony. Why is this a big deal? Well, there are 2 primary strategies that ants have when it comes to their queens. About 15 to 20% of species are polygynous, meaning they have multiple queens, allowing them to grow rapidly and spread quickly to new areas. Most ants, however, like Camponotus here, are monogamous, meaning the colony will only tolerate 1 queen on the throne. So then why would I put them in a tube together? Why risk what I've been trying to— oops, oh, Queen Aurum did not want to go in the tube. She had other plans to explore my desk. Once again, you can witness how incredibly skilled I am at scooping up queen ants. I'm just afraid that I'll accidentally squish her if I try and pick her up. But eventually, I got her into the tube. Where were we? Oh yeah. Why would I risk putting them in the same tube? Am I just cruel and enjoy watching animals fight? Well, aside from Pokemon, no. I have my reasons, but let's see if they accept each other first, and then I'll explain. Queen Aurum looked around at her new chamber, smelling that she was not the only one there. Without delay, she approached Queen Midas, who slowly turned around to find that she too was not alone. Then to my relief, they exchanged a friendly greeting, but I still watched carefully, ready to intervene if things went south. While we watched these 2 get acquainted and used to each other's presence, let me tell you why I'm doing this. In the wild, there are actually a few major benefits to founding a colony together. With 2 queens to feed the brood, there are more resources to go around, usually resulting in larger first-gen workers. 2, you also get a bigger first generation of workers, which means you have a head start over other colonies because you can collect more food. And 3rd, if one queen dies, her brood will be inherited by the other queen rather than die with her. This co-founding strategy is called pleiometrosis. Now in reality, the chances of them attacking each other at this stage are very low. They recognize that teaming up for now will increase their chances of success, and in nature, that's all that matters. Speaking of increasing their chances, I'm giving them some nectar to sustain them, since they will not eat again until their future children can bring them food. Now notice here that Queen Aurum, the one drinking, has a smaller gaster than Queen Midas. She kept drinking and drinking and drinking as I watched her gaster fill up with nectar. Queen Midas chose to hang back, but Queen Aurum kept going back for more, trying to slurp up every last bit. I'm actually impressed. That would be like drinking an entire cooler full of fruit punch in one go. Oof. Once she was done, she went back to her sister and shared the meal with her. This act of teamwork told me that an alliance had been made and that the two queens would be okay. 1 week later, and we're about to find out if that's still the case. And they are besties, huddled up together nurturing their first eggs, which already puts them well ahead of the first Queen Midas, who didn't lay any eggs until her 3rd week, at which point she only had 3. They already had 8. The following week, they were up to 25 eggs, which means that this partnership is working. Our dynamic duo is on a roll, but unfortunately, this heartwarming tale of sisterhood is not a permanent arrangement. You see, even if they're fine with ruling together, their daughters won't be. There will eventually come a point, usually after their first diapause, when the workers decide that they only need one queen. When that happens, they will choose the healthiest, most fertile queen to be their monarch, and the other will be ripped apart limb from limb. Nature is brutal, so my plan is to found them together to see what we can learn, then split the colony before that happens. After 6 weeks, they had cocoons, 7 cocoons and 13 larvae. This is where their chances of success go up. Because as larvae, they're growing in size and need to be fed from the queen's reserves. But once those larvae spin their cocoons, they no longer require nutrients until they're born.
Para sa mga sobrang extra tulad mo, Ribisco Crackers. May pasobra dahil special ka.
The following week, most of the brood had turned into cocoons. It was only a matter of time now before their first daughters would emerge from their little sleeping bags, which could happen any day now. But we'll save that for next time, as the story of the ants. No, I'm just kidding, we're not gonna end it there. We're so close. 3 days later, I went back to check on the queen's sisters. Oh my gosh. Welcome to the world, little ones. Can you guess which one is your real mom? Their color is so pretty. It looks like the second worker hasn't quite woken up yet after... Oh, Your Highness, you're sitting on your child. Your Majesty, stop! I think it's time for their first meal. Does anyone know what this is stuck to the cotton ball? It looks like a hollow cocoon with a booger inside. We weren't getting any takers for the nectar, and they were kind of freaking out being in the light, so I covered up part of the tube and waited. There were a few attempts made. Come on, girl. I know you're hungry. No one came out to drink the nectar, but I noticed that they were already started on their second batch of eggs. Another week went by, and we have a colony, which means we can officially welcome the minions of Midas back to the team. Queen Midas and Queen Aurum have made it through the hardest part together. I know the emotional capacity of an ant doesn't exactly run very deep, but it must still be nice not to have gone through such a difficult struggle alone. Whether they consciously know it or not, I'd like to believe that at some capacity, these two sisters have bonded through their experience of becoming mothers and successfully bringing forth a new colony into the world. And yes, the sister queens will need to be separated at some point to avoid getting removed from power. But for now, it has been inspiring to witness one of nature's rarely observed partnerships that bend the rules of their species for the good of the colony. And of course, this is just the beginning of their story and their kingdoms. There are many more tales ahead for the minions of Midas, like figuring out exactly how and when to split the colony in half. But that's a tale for another time, as the story of the ants marches on. If you enjoyed this story, drop a
Sali na sa Royal Collect and Win. Collect 6 caps and redeem daily.
Earlier this year, I got a colony of big-headed ants that I named the Megamites. I actually wasn't super fond of them at first, but these mischievous little bobbleheads have shown me who they are and won me over with the story I'm about to tell you. The personality of these tiny rascals is exactly why I love keeping colonies of various species, because they're all unique. In case you didn't figure it out by the name big-headed ants, their species, Pheidole bicarinata, have soldiers with massive heads for defense and crushing seeds. You can watch their first video here if you haven't seen it. After the initial hustle and bustle of that video, which took place during the first couple weeks that I got them, their activities died down. For several weeks, the Outworld was a bit of a ghost town, and they didn't seem very hungry, leaving most of their protein untouched. There's no way I could possibly do a head count, so I couldn't really tell if they were growing or shrinking. Then I remembered how a little heat went a long way in saving my colony of long-legged ants, the Raiders of Arrakis, which have an epic story in the works, by the way. So I put the Megamines on a heat pad. Not very high, but just enough to give them a little bit of warmth, and the results were shocking. In a matter of days, they went from being pretty boring homebodies hiding in their tube to adventurous busybodies patrolling their territory and holding secret meetings. It's as if they were on low battery and I just put them on a charging mat. Maybe they are little cyborgs. With their HQ now connected to power, their personalities started to come out as their operations began. Time for some observations. Observation 1. They are meticulously tidy. I noticed that despite their small size, they made great efforts to keep their enclosure organized. They have 2 distinct piles. This is their food pile of seeds which they're planning to eat, and this is their waste pile, neatly kept and even sorted by size, which makes it very convenient for me to take out their trash. I'll tell you where I got these cute little tools in a minute. The rest of their enclosure is spotless. This is a stain, otherwise they would clean that up too. So naturally, I started playing a game to mess with them by sprinkling seeds all over their outworld or messing up their piles to see what would happen. And lo and behold, I'd come back the next day to find 2 neatly sorted piles once more, which again is impressive because some of those seeds are Earlier this year, I got a colony of big-headed ants that I named the Megamines.
Lucky me Pansit Canton Kasalapak. Busog na, sarapin na spa.
Back in February, I managed to catch I named the Megamines. I actually specifically used this outworld because the air slits are small enough to keep these cheeky scamps from getting out. But then, they got out, taking advantage of the tiniest gap between the panels, then giving me the finger by walking across my desk. So that was taped up and kept them contained, at least for a couple months, until one little jailbreaker figured out that when I put the lid on and it's not pressed up against the corner just right, she could wiggle her way out. Quite the opportunist. I'm able to keep them contained as long as I make sure that the lid is butted up against this corner, but it's not a permanent fix. The Megamines are going to eventually need a new home because they're only going to increase in number. I started looking through my collection of ant nests that I've acquired and found that most of them wouldn't work for the Megamines. Either the nest was simply too big, or they had small gaps that the little minxes could exploit. The other requirement I have is that they need to be easy to capture on camera, so I can't use anything with dark surfaces or shadowy caves, or we won't be able to see them very well. I landed on this nest, which was sent to me by my friend Neek over at The Crafting Ant. He's got a great channel with lots of ant content and an awesome selection of nests in his shop. I'll do an unboxing video with the bundle of goodies that he sent me. And yes, that's also where I got the little broom and dustpan. So, we have our shoot, dang. Hold on. We have our potential nest. Yes, first try. And because this nest is part of a modular system, you can configure it however you want. It has this double water tower attachment so the ants can drink, and for most other species, this would work perfectly fine. But right away, I noticed these little gaps that I know these buggers will find a way to slip through. So, I'm going to use a simple nest and outworld setup. Now, I need to test it to make sure it can actually hold the jailbreaking Megamines. I picked up 2 of the escapees, since I figured they were the best at escaping, and dropped them into the setup to see if they could find a way out. They got straight to work, exploring every square inch of that enclosure from top to bottom. Later that day, I came back to find only a single ant was still inside. I searched the entire setup for the other worker, trying to figure out how in the world she could have escaped. I had just about reached acceptance that this nest might not work after all, until, boom! I caught her on the underside of the lid. Clever girl. Alright, escape proof? Check. But they still need a water source. How about a simple water tower? Problem solved, right? Well, not exactly. Once again, their size poses another challenge. They're so small that they get sucked up into the bottle and just kinda float there on the surface. Luckily, I was able to save 2 of them. Then I found these water feeders with a tiny little sponge they can drink from, so there's no possible way that they could drown. It made me kinda sad to see that the quarter was not included, because I've really been wanting a new quarter lately. I went ahead and bought it anyway, but shipping got delayed. I have a story to tell and I gotta get this video out, so I'm making my own. I took one of the little plastic capsules I use for catching queen ants and made a mini test tube setup with a cotton ball. See, you can get creative with what you have. Now, it's time to plan out the move. Ultimately, I want the setup to be like this, but first I need to connect the tube with this attachment. Rather than connect it directly to the nest, I'm going to give myself some options with this feeding corridor in case they take a while to move or I need to connect the outworld. Now I'll just lock everything down just to be safe. And just like that, our nest is ready for the move. Okay, here we go. Removing lid and initiating transfer.
Ready? Let's go. Bite it, sip it, serve it, eat it, drink it. Just at 0.
Transfer. I'll just tap out the extra seeds and connect the two. And stop. I don't have footage for what happened next because for whatever stupid reason, I stopped recording. So allow me to describe the situation for you as it unfolded. As I attempted to connect the test tube, it refused to fit onto the adapter. So naturally, like a freaking genius, I set it down on the table in order to close the lid to the outworld. Ants began pouring out like a bunch of 3rd graders that just witnessed a piñata get ripped in half. So I quickly grab the 2 ends and do my best to keep the tube connected to the nest to prevent more from escaping. Needless to say, the ants are still slipping through the gaps. Now I find myself in a situation where both hands are completely occupied and I can no longer put the tube back into the box because I had closed the lid. Reaching for my camera at this point is out of the question, and there's no possible way I could put it down for even a second. So I did the only thing that I could. Babe? Babe? Honey, I need help. But alas, she was blissfully unaware in another room, headphones on, probably listening to Taylor Swift. And I'm like, the Megaminds are going to eventually, because I've really been wanting a new quarter lately. I went ahead and bought it anyway, but shipping got delayed. I have a story to tell and I gotta get this video out, so I'm making my own. I took one of the little plastic capsules I use for catching queen ants and made a mini test tube setup with a cotton ball. See, you can get creative with what you have. Now, it's time to plan out the move. Okay, here we go. And this is where we continue. Alright. Just hang on.
Oh my gosh! Go!
Okay. Shoot, what do I do now? Just holding the tube against the nest was clearly not working. So I tell her to start sweeping up as many ants as she could into the outworld. And I gotta see this through. So I start making a seal out of putty. But that is also very ineffective and ants are slipping out left and right. A bunch got crushed in the putty, ants are freaking out. I'm trying to get as many shots as I can so that I can even tell you this story. Neither of us knew what was going on or how to fix it. So I decided to abort. And the Megaminds are... I said the You guys, you're... Hey, it's okay. It's gonna be alright. I just have to... You'll be fine. I just need... Okay, they need some time. After all the mayhem, I noticed something on the nest. If I slide out this little insert, it allows me to attach a small size test tube. As much as I was kicking myself right now for not seeing that ahead of time, this means that my plan might actually work after all. Do you hear that, Megaminds? You'll be able to... I needed to let things die down before trying again. The next morning, things were looking fairly calm at Megamind HQ. There were a handful of workers in the outworld, but the majority were still inside the tube. Now was my chance. I got everything set up once more to make the move, this time making sure that the plastic insert was taken out and my wife had a heads up in case things went crazy again. Alright, initiating transfer, positioning, and tube connected, without one single escapee. We have some stragglers in the outworld, but we can dump them in once the colony is moved. The question now is, will they actually move out? Young colonies can be especially stubborn when relocating to a new setup. At first, there wasn't a whole lot of interest in the newly connected space. There was mostly conversation about who turned on the lights and when their next meal was going to show up. That is, until one curious mind dared to venture into the new territory and investigate. Now, the way that ants communicate is fascinating to watch, and you're about to see that in action. They talk by producing dozens of different pheromones, chemical signals that convey specific information to other colony members. There's alarm pheromones, food is this way pheromones, I'm one of you, don't eat me pheromones, I'm a hungry larva, please feed me pheromones, and many more. Right now, these workers are emitting the hey, come check out this new area I found pheromone. As more and more workers catch on to the scent, the colony begins to explore their new area. Once the nest was discovered, the news really started to spread. Workers were going back and forth, bringing their friends to see the cave for themselves. This went on for quite a while before anything actually happened, until I saw it. Right there. One worker had the idea of bringing a larva to the new home where it was nice and dark, and released an invitation to do the same. Then another worker hit the like and subscribe buttons, which I appreciated very much. They also picked up a larva, then another, and another. As the pheromone signal got stronger, more and more joined in. However, there were some that disagreed with this effort and started bringing brood back to the nest. But the majority were voting to move. This is how an ant colony makes decisions. Ants aren't ruled by the queen. It's actually a democracy in its purest form. So fun to watch. The brood pile continued to shrink until most of the colony had left. There were a stubborn few that were refusing to move, so I used a bright light to give them a nudge. That seemed to do the trick. Eventually, Queen Cerebella grew uncomfortable with the bright light and began to consider leaving as well. She wasn't too sure about it though, as she was quite fond of her current home. Her steps were slow and uneasy as she hesitantly ventured from her throne. So, a group of her daughters began pushing her on, escorting their queen towards the new nest. She really took some coaxing here, and that's when I noticed that she was missing her right middle leg. I wonder what happened. Luckily, a queen doesn't need to do much walking. This is about as far as she... Wait, hold on. Where are you going? She was having second thoughts and decided to go back. Several minutes later, the workers managed to turn her around again and push her towards the exit, releasing the pheromone that says, "Your Majesty, let's go, you need to move." Reluctantly, Queen Cerebella yielded and followed her escort out of the test tube, then across the open feeding corridor, and finally, into the new nest. The Queen was now safely inside the new Megamind HQ. The few remaining workers were taking a stand against leaving their home. I left the light on for over an hour, but their protest continued. So I disconnected the tube and dumped them into the outworld. It may look messy now, but you and I both know that they'll clean it up. There's something super satisfying about holding the entire colony in this little box. I really do love this nest. Now the time had come to finally connect the outworld and reunite the stranded workers with the rest of the colony. And there we go. A little panic from some of the workers, but not too bad. The Megaminds have officially moved into their new home. This should leave them with plenty of... Is that a head? This should leave them with plenty of room to grow, until I'll eventually have to move them again. But hopefully that's not for a while. Thanks again to the Crafting Ant for providing this awesome nest. Links to his channel and store are in the description. These little troublemakers are so fun to watch. and the following morning, I found their outworld clean and spotless. Just